Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Directors meeting for June 27th, 2017, our agenda meeting where we set the agenda for our meeting on July 5th, the day after the 4th of July. That's a reminder, I guess, to everyone that we will be meeting on Wednesday next week as opposed to on Tuesday. So if you'll spread the word to everyone, we'd appreciate that. Thank you. We got a bunch of big stuff happening right now. In terms of presentations, a couple of cataclysmic, monumental retirements that we want to acknowledge and recognize that certainly reinforces the legacy and dedication of people who are dedicated to public service. So with that kind of as a preface, let me call on Bruce Moore, our city manager, for the recognitions of two of our department directors who are going to be departing us.
Mayor, members of the board, it is bittersweet today that we're recognizing two of our long-term employees. I'll just take them in alphabetical order. The first one will be Mr. Brzezinski. Tony has served with the city for 39 years, January 1978 to 2017. His favorite memory of working for the city, the number one thing on his list was the board meetings. And having the opportunity to work with and get to know so many wonderful people. His plans for retirement include playing with the grandkids, biking, fishing, traveling, and taking it easy. We have another event for both of these individuals, so I'll probably save my other comments for them, for that time, if I can get through them. But Tony, on behalf of the City of Little Rock and your colleagues, thank you for your dedication to this city. Thank you for sound professional recommendations throughout your career. You're going to be missed.
And I know Susan can't read my writing, but it was June 1978. And that's what it says here, June 78. So, any questions? Good, okay, I'm done. No.
We still have some things on the agenda for you today. You know that.
Well, I don't know where to start. When I told Bruce, I guess it was in January, that I've decided it's time to move on. And I indicated to him that I was looking at the end of June, but I'd be flexible. But we're here at the end of June, and it's hard to believe because June seemed so far out when I told him in January. But then all of a sudden last week, in fact, Truman and I were talking about it, that it's here now. After, well, for me, 39 years. It's just been an honor and a pleasure to be part of this organization for so many years, and to have interacted with just an incredible group of people over the years. I want to thank Bruce for giving me the opportunity to go back to planning 13 years ago. As you know, I was in planning, then I went to housing for 2 years, and then I applied for this job, and he selected me, and I want to thank you very much for that. I want to thank the mayor and the board members for always giving staff an opportunity to present their side or the issues in a professional manner, and your questions have been always very pointed, and you make a decision based on what you hear from the staff, the applicant, and if there's opposition. And sometimes you don't agree with staff, but that's part of the process, and we go on to the next issue. And of course, I want to thank all the department heads that I've worked with over the years and the current group. It's just an outstanding group of people that are very dedicated. All the departments throughout the years, I've, indirectly or directly, we work with Public Works a whole bunch, Parks and Rec, and everybody's been always there for the department. And over the years, all the boards and commissions that I've worked with or have had some involvement with, I will tell you that is just all the members over the years, they're very dedicated, and I don't think a lot of people realize how much time planning commissioner, a board of adjustment member, City Beautiful puts into what they have to do. And so they've done a lot for this city, and they're very dedicated. And I would like to go way back and thank Nat Griffin, who was the planning director in 1978, that took a chance on me and hired me as the city's first neighborhood planner. So thank you, Mr. Griffin. He's in Texas. I got a very nice note from him when he found out I was retiring. And of course, I know for 13 plus years, you've always seen me up here, but it's the staff of the Department of Planning and Development that make that department what it is. It's just an outstanding group of people that are dedicated and give 110% all the time. And I couldn't do this job without them. And I would like, for those members of the department that are here, I'd like them to come up here and join me, because they deserve the recognition as much as I do, because they make it happen. This is a lot of them, but we have a lot of people that are out in the field doing their job. But again, this has just been a special group to work with, and they've always been there when I needed them. They won't come to the board meetings, but
They've learned.
Except in the courses.
and it's been a great career. And again, I thank you for all your support, and I want to thank Tom. He's always there when I've been unable to answer questions, which does, as you know, that's happened off and on, but he's always been able to help me out of that. And I know I've missed some people, so I just want to thank everybody that I've had contact with over the many years, either through work or just, meeting them. The citizens of Little Rock are great. And finally, I know I'm going on way too long, but, I'd like to give a special thanks to Scott Carter for the invitation that he designed and put together for the reception, because I'm a graduate of UC Berkeley, and he found this blue pattern is the Cal Berkeley color. And so, thank you, Scott. I really, so.
Well, Tony, thank you so much for your 39 years. A true professional. You always kept your composure, no matter how heated the issues were. A true professional. So thank you so much, and the best of luck to you and your family as you decide on what you're going to do with all your free time.
And I should thank my family for their support over the years. But they'll be here Friday, I think.
Well,
So,
very
anyway,
good.
Thank you, and thank you to everybody.
There's a couple of people here who would like to say a few more words. Director Wright.
Hey, Tony. I don't know what we're going to do not seeing your face every Tuesday. You never got a break. Some departments we would see only maybe once or twice a month, but you had to be at every single meeting. That is a true professional. You always kept your composure. You always gave a understandable explanation. Even if we didn't agree, you gave it and we understood what you were saying. I admire your calm demeanor, especially when it came down to that Highway 10. Because, boy, I tell you, over the years, that has really been a challenge. But you've been able to represent the city of Little Rock in the way that I admire. And I am personally going to miss you. So I wish you the best. I really wish you just make it an even 40.
Jamie's already.
Yeah, I know. Hey, I think you got a good replacement.
He's
I-
gonna
you
do
know.
a great job.
Yeah, he's gonna do a great job. And we're gonna be here to support him, but I just really want you to know how much I have appreciated you over the years that I have been on this board. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Director Hendricks.
Tony, I would be remiss if I did not say something. I met you, I think, in 1999. It may have been later than that when you had to intervene with the South End Neighborhood Association. And I think you acted as if you really didn't know what was about to happen. But what I would like to say is that I wish that all of Mr. Moore's employees would have the demeanor and the attitude that you have as a Caucasian. I have never had a problem with you. And I think they all need to pick up on that. Some of them have attitudes, but I have an attitude too. So I want to congratulate you, and I may not make it tomorrow, but I wish you well.
Thank you, Director Hendricks.
Director Adcock, you're recognized.
Tony, I want to thank you for all the great things you have taught me. And I want to apologize for all the bad habits I picked up along the way. But I could voice,
Like, why can't I do that?
but it has really been a joy working with you. You're always quiet and very dependable and everything. And no matter how upset I would get about an issue, you was always the quiet one in the conversation. And I really appreciate that. And I don't know what size shoes you wear, but I hope that Jamie has shoes big enough to fit you,
He will.
because he's got a hard one to follow. So thank you for all that you've done for this city and for how fair you've been to all of our neighborhoods.
Thank you.
Director Richardson.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony, I want to echo the comments of a couple of my colleagues. I really, really love your demeanor, your professionalism, your courtesy, and your ability to work within a number of different sectors of our community. I think I've always really appreciated the fact that 10 years ago when I took office, you took me under your wings, and you taught me a lot about what you do and what we need to do, what I need to do in this seat right here. And I'm really, really thankful for that. But I think what culminated with that was our 12th Street revitalization work, and you were a key component of that. You did a lot of work behind the scenes, had a lot of patience with me and our community, and it couldn't have happened without you. And I just really, really appreciate the way you carry yourself and how respectful you are and how nice you are to everybody else and your demeanor. I think we all can learn a lot from that. And I certainly try to emulate you in a number of different arenas that I've just mentioned. And I pray that everything is well and peaceful and productive and fun as you move forward. We're going to miss you. It's a big seat to fill. Really big seat to fill. And I think that it's just going to be a great loss to the city, not just the city of Hall, but the city of Little Rock as a whole, and the work that you do and the leadership that you give us, the leadership that you provide, and the tutoring and mentoring you give us up here, because a lot of times we think we know everything and we got it all figured out, but I think you remind us sometimes that we have a little bit more to learn. And I thank you for that, sir.
Thank you.
Very good. So Tony, on retirement, I know once upon a time you had a music program on
KABF.
on KABF. Yes. Are
That
you
was a
gonna
lot of years ago.
reactivate that?
No. That was a volunteer 2 hours a week.
Well,
So,
I think maybe
enjoyed
some
it,
of us would enjoy listening to it again. So
Okay.
you might want to think about it with all that spare
I
time
think
you
if
got.
you donate money, they'll give you a couple hours here and there, so.
Very good.
Mayor?
Well, best of luck. Yes.
Can I add something to this particular one today? And I'm going to actually address the board while I'm talking about Tony. I will tell you that it is going to be a great loss because we like having him around here, Director Richardson, but the standard he has set, the standard his department has set is so high and so solid that we're going to know he's here every day, even when he's not. And I want to tell you, the first time I had to have him in a deposition, we were going through the background material and I, we asked about education. He said, UC Berkeley, and I looked at him and he said, what? And I said, Berkeley? And he said, yeah. I said, because I thought, This guy was going there about the time of the free speech movement, and yet he's not that, wild-eyed liberal that I thought would be taking on all of the government. What the board doesn't know is all of the incredible counsel that Tony provides to so many departments. Bruce will be the first to tell you that I sometimes go a little bit too far. And Tony's always the one I've always been able to talk to and say, what do you think? And he's always been able to say, Tom, you went too far. And I've always appreciated that in him. But also know, and I think you should know, that in the time that he has been the director of planning, the whole concept of land use in this country has seen sea changes in the law. When he started, if we wanted to ask for dedication of right-of-way as a part of the zoning, we did it, and we didn't ask about it. Now it's a potential taking that's going to cost the city. And then it becomes not only that, but becomes regulatory actions that we take, could be takings. Since he started, the Americans with Disabilities Act has required that his office be able to not only make sure that they've got a door in a house, but that the door is ADA compatible if it's going to be a commercial structure. And since he started, we have had all kinds of things go back and forth in the laws about what is proper zoning, what is not proper zoning. Now we're in an era where we're looking at a type of zoning which would allow literally the auto shop to be right next to the residence, which is right next to the grocery store, because they're all made to look together, and this is the newest thing that's coming in form-based zoning. And Tony has stayed aware of that and on top of that. When we've had to go to trial because somebody has challenged one of the decisions of this board or of our planning commission or of our board of adjustment, we've had the obligation to be able to explain why we took the position that we did. And when you think about it a lot of times, particularly in the last 10 years or 15 years, when government does something that impacts somebody's land, they don't tend to like it, and they tend to find a lot of people on juries that are the same way. And yet, Tony has always been able to be the witness that helps us to explain we're not overreaching, we are dealing with necessities, these things happen. People talk about impact fees and how the city should have impact fees, and developers will say, well, we do in certain senses, and that we require roadways and infrastructure to be put into place. But all of those discussions are the types of things that I've noticed that people can get into and say it's going to be this way, or it's going to be that way, or it's going to be no way. And Tony's always been able to say, well, have you considered? And that's what I'm going to miss.
Thank you.
Director Richardson, did you have any other thoughts? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Turn me on. Just one quick, another point. Tom left me a little bit of time left. Tony, the big game notwithstanding, I think that people in California can see you and I work together as be proof positive that the Berkeley Bears and Stanford Cardinal can work together. Big game notwithstanding. So we can do it. We can take this out and show them in California, Tony.
Thank you to everybody. I appreciate it all.
And Tony, if you ever want to be on the radio again, you can be on KWCP 98.9, right in the heart of the John Barrow community, and there is no cost.
And Tony's DJ name was Roland Tone. So that's true. Okay, next we're going to recognize our Parks Director. Truman's been in the city for 31 years, 2 breaks of service. He was here as an Assistant Parks Director when I was here, and then he left to go to Atlanta, to go to the seminary and worked with the City of Atlanta Parks Department. And then we had the opportunity to bring him back as Parks Director, and that was a great opportunity for not only Truman, but for the city and for the park system. He said, although I've received personal honors, both internal and external of the city, the ones I'm most proud of are the ones achieved as a result of a team effort. As such, I would say that the 3 successes and successful department accreditations speak to the team within and who we are as a department. His favorite member of the city includes working daily with my coworkers. His plans for retirement include concentrating on full-time ministry, spending more time with the family, especially the grandchildren, writing and traveling. I'd just like to say about Truman, he's always been very responsive. He has one of the bigger departments, and a lot of people are interested in parks and how we maintain them. And I think without a doubt he's done a tremendous job on behalf of the city of Little Rock and on behalf of recreation and parks throughout our city. So Truman, if you would come up. On behalf of the city of Little Rock and myself as city manager, congratulations on your retirement. You're going to be missed. We wish you the best of luck and Godspeed. Uh-oh, the preacher has to get notes.
Well, I have notes because I don't want to go on and on and on, okay? We've got another event that's also planned for Friday. So what I simply wanted to do, I made a few notes. I'm sorry. Wednesday, not Friday, Wednesday. You see, I'm already highly confused, okay? But to Mayor Stoller, to Vice Mayor Kathy Webb, and to other members of the board, I mean, this is indeed a bittersweet moment. I was saying to my wife, I say, now I hope I don't get up there and choke up, okay? Because after over 40 years in the business and over 32 years of those 40-some years have been here with the City of Little Rock Parks and Recreation Department. But first, I'd simply like to say to the mayor and to the board, I thank you really from the bottom of my heart for all of the support that you've shown to Parks and Recreation Department, and for all of the care that you've taken to make sure that you made an investment in the quality of life issues. Thank you for showing us and the citizens of Little Rock that there is great merit to quality of life issues. So thank you so much for that. Also, the city manager, Bruce Moore, I've told him this time and time again, I want to thank him again for believing enough in me to be able to bring me back home. This is where it all started for me, right here with Little Rock Parks and Recreation, and he thought enough to be able to bring me back home as the director for Little Rock Parks and Recreation. So, Bruce, I want you to know that I deeply appreciate you doing that. And when I think about that, I think of the immortal words of the actor George C. Scott in the movie Patton. And he made this statement. He says, I've got a lot of faults, but ingratitude ain't one of them, okay? So thank you so very much. To all of my co-department heads and to all of my co-workers, I want y'all to know that I truly appreciate all of the support that I have received from you and for always coming to my rescue just when I needed it. No matter what it was, I can always pick up the phone and call one of my co-department heads and, they say, Truman, what do you need? How can we help you? And I tried to pick some of that up along the way as well, and hopefully they feel the same way about me. It truly is, a family. And I'm more than happy to be able to call my fellow department heads a true family, as well as other co-workers that I've been able to work with during my tenure here at the City of Little Rock. Also, to all of the citizens that I've had the great pleasure of working with over the years, to all of the neighborhood associations and to all of the individuals and just everybody that I've had an opportunity to be able to interact with. I want them to know that I really do feel that I'm a better individual for having known them. And finally, to my Parks and Recreation family. I oftentimes say that if we've been able to soar like eagles, is only because they have been the wind beneath our wings. And that is the absolute truth. I mean, we truly are a family, part of a larger family. They are a class act, a group of individuals I could not have asked for any better people to work with than the individuals that we have within the Department of Little Rock Parks and Recreation. And I know Tony said it, and I'm not doing it because he did it, okay? But because I think they are truly deserving, I'm going to ask all of my Parks and Recreation family if you would please stand. You have truly been a joy to work with, and I want you to know that I'm truly going to miss you. And the depth of my appreciation, my love for each of you, I don't really have time to express it this afternoon, but I will talk about it in more detail on Wednesday. I got it right. Say, let the church say amen. And finally, I want you to know that I'm not retiring home to a rocking chair. I intended to vote, as City Manager Moore said, my time to full-time ministry, spending more time with my family, especially my 4 grandchildren, and even doing a bit of writing, and a few other things that I have on the back burner as well that you will hear more about later on. So in closing, I would simply like to say, again, thank you to everybody for everything that you've ever done for me. Thank you.
Yeah, don't leave. I got a lot of lights on, Truman. Director Wright, you're recognized, please.
Can't believe I'm first. Truman, we got a chance to say our goodbyes a little earlier, but I just want the public to know and my colleagues to know how much I admire you and your spirit. As you and I both shared in your office, we've disagreed, we've argued, we fought. We've just been at loggerheads, but we've always come to an agreement. And always at the center of it was what was best for parks and in our neighborhoods. I admire that in you, that you can disagree but not become disagreeable. Because most people can't do that.
Yeah.
So it is truly a gift, and it is an indication of you being a spiritual person and a man of God. And I admire that. My one true regret in our long history together is that we were never able to give you the funding that you truly deserved in order to make these parks what we require them to be. And you've always had to make do with a lot less than you should have. We did the best we could. My colleagues and I, we all know, what we're up against. But you needed so much more in order to make the neighborhood parks be what we need them to be. You did a good job. You can hold your head up and be very, very proud of what you have achieved here in the city of Little Rock. And just know that I have a genuine affection for you that won't fade. Okay?
Well, praise the Lord.
Thank you.
Director Peck, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Truman. I'm really going to miss you. I've only been on the board for 6 months, but I want to thank you for being so very gracious to me as one of the liaisons from the City Board to Parks and Recreation. And I feel like I'm now part of that family. And your spirit and your leadership certainly trickles down. You've got a great group of people, and I'm really, really proud to be a small part of that family. And from the very beginning when we went on our tour, I think we went to 22 parks in one day, and I never knew we had so many parks. And I'm so proud. I feel like I'm now an ambassador for Parks and Recreation, and sometimes that's good, and sometimes it's not. When I get a a text about every week about the trash at Two Rivers Park. Well, there are trash cans, but they have to put them in the trash can.
That's right.
And another thing I can thank you for, indirectly, is I now am the proud owner of a kayak, and that's because of the boat ramp at the Benny Craig Park.
All
And so
right.
now I am amongst the snakes and alligators. I haven't seen those yet, but kayaking, and when I'm on the Fush or in any of the parks in our city, I'll think of you, and you have a great legacy, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Director Peck.
Director Hines, you recognize, please.
Just wanted to kind of share with you the same thing I shared with Tony last week, is that when I was running for office, I went down and during the campaign and sat down with most of the department heads, and you were one of those, and I really appreciate your candor and basically being very open to somebody who is a very big novice politically, and sharing with me kind of what you did and how vast our park system is in the city. Unfortunately, out west, we haven't developed as many of those, so we haven't gotten to work together as much as I would have liked, but I certainly appreciate your service, and I know that all my fellow board members appreciate you, and I wish you a happy retirement and on your next journey.
Thank you.
Good travels.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Vice Mayor Webb?
Mr. Mayor Truman, a few years ago, before I was elected to the board, you and Mark were willing to take a chance to help low-income families in Arkansas by putting, or in Little Rock, by putting a small garden out in the Western Hills Park. And I just want to tell you that we've already gotten about 50,000 pounds of fresh vegetables and fresh fruit that's gone to our citizens with absolutely not one penny to those citizens. We were out there this week gathering, I think, 8,000 pounds of cabbage. And so that legacy will continue on for our low-income families. So thank you for being willing to do that.
Thank you. That's been a great project for us, and hopefully we'll continue to go in that direction.
Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Truman, much like Tony, when I first got elected, you took me up under your wings. You provided some mentoring that I needed, much needed mentoring, and you showed me I didn't know as much as I thought I knew, and I appreciate that. But I think more importantly, Truman, that you represent the essence of all our young men, what all our young men need to be. Young men who look like me and you. There's a model to point to right there, being a great role model for them, showing them being a great example for what our young people need to be, especially our young black males. And I think that's important for us to see on a daily basis. And I think you haven't failed that yet. You've consistent with it. You've been real strong with it. You've been out in the community with it. You're here with it. You're out there with it. And I know I give Bruce grief about a lot of things. I give him grief about a lot. But one of the greatest decisions he made was to bring you back here. And I'm glad you decided to come back here. And if anybody, Truman, met you, anybody had the opportunity to engage you and spend some time with you, you would walk with the spirit that service to others is a rent that we pay for being here. And you get that from you. When people talk with you, spend time with you, we leave around saying service to others is a rent that I pay for being here. And I get that spirit from you. And I wish you much luck in your future. Thank you for everything you've done for me and our city as well.
Thank you so much, Director Richardson. Thank you.
Director Hendricks?
Thank you. Truman, the thing that I would like to say that as a Christian, you have exemplified the role of a Christian as head of the department. It's one thing that I hope that Mr. Moore will take care of for you, and I think you know Swagger the Branch.
That's still on the
So
radar.
we're waiting for you to do that for us, but you have done a yeoman of a job for us. And I know that what you can do now is do your full time in the Church of the Living God, which is the best role that anybody could play.
Well, thank
Good
you.
luck and enjoy your grandchildren.
Thank you so much, Director Hendricks.
Director Adcock?
Truman, I was sitting here after Doris spoke, trying to think if you ever told me no. And I think what happened was I would come in and say something, and you would show me how I needed to do it another way and make me think it was my idea to change what I wanted. So you had a gift of that. You are a wonderful man to work with, and I've truly enjoyed working with you. You know, we talked the other day about, since I've been here, we've had 3 parks directors. And it's really hard. You and Tony don't realize how hard it is for us to give you up. because we're comfortable with you. And I kind of feel sorry for your replacement, like I do for Jamie with Tony, because he's going to have large shoes to fill. And he's going to have to be a double good person because you are. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Adcock.
Tom?
I just want to say something differently from everybody else. First, the closest I've ever come to a heart attack is your fault, because you were at the office late one night when I was late one night and thought nobody was in City Hall, and when you left the Parks and Recreation section back when the city attorney's office was on the first floor, I almost died. It took me almost the rest of the night to get through it. What I want to talk to you about is I think it's so appropriate that you have mixed your ministry and Parks and Recreation together. I believe that faith is like a stream, that while the water and the bed and the banks pretty much are the same, it changes constantly. And while we sit in one part looking at it, it's got to be different from what we saw just a minute ago. And I kind of hope that in your retirement, one day you and I can sit by that spring and have that discussion about all that we have learned and enjoyed here together. Godspeed.
Thank you. You sure you don't have aspiration to become a preacher, Tom?
They asked me that, and I told them that at the time I liked good scotch, loose women, and bad jokes, and there was no place for that in a pulpit.
Well, we do serve a forgiving God. Okay.
You know, that's about the funniest thing Tom Carpenter's ever said.
He told me that once before. I'm beginning to believe him. Okay. Okay.
Director Fortson.
Truman, I'm not going to try to top what Mr. Carpenter just said. So I'll just say it's been a pleasure working with you, and Godspeed as you go forward.
Thank you, Director Fortson. Thank you.
Well, Truman, I remember when I had the great opportunity to become mayor, wanted to see what we could do to do something with our parks, and you were very helpful in our creative ideas of having to refund those parks bonds and inject $8.6 million of capital into our parks. And it's truly made a difference over the last several years. It's also added a lot of maintenance responsibility, which I see all my friends out there smiling and groaning about at the same time. And you've had to shoulder those kinds of responsibilities and stretch people as thin as a pancake, and oftentimes, and I recognize that, and we up here push on you because we know that the citizens love these quality of life issues, and the parks really are part of it. We've got some wonderful, wonderful parks, and and you're right, it's a team effort, and that team makes the city look good. It makes you look good, but we know it's because of your leadership. So thank you very much, and best of luck to you.
Thank you so much. Again, I've enjoyed tremendously the time that I've spent with the City of Little Rock Parks and Recreation Department. And again, just thank you so much.
Truman, I know you like radio, so I'm extending the same offer to you as I extended to Tony. Come on over to KWCP 98.9.
Well, that means I've got to get me a handle as
Yes.
interesting as Tony.
Yes, you do.
Well, we'll volunteer some names for you, Truman. Okay, thank you very much. That concludes our retirement recognitions for today. We will have a police retirement on 5th of July as well, Lieutenant Scott Timmons. And we can now move on to the agenda. Bruce, I think on everyone's paper handout, we've got the addition of a resolution and an ordinance. It's not on the screen, however. Are those are to be added, I take it?
They are, Mayor.
If everybody would look on your written printed agendas, you'll see a resolution to enter into contact with Baptist Health. If there's no objection, we'll add that to our consent agenda. And then we have an ordinance to add as well.
It's on your printed agenda, M2, at the big first page.
And then the city manager is recommending to withdraw ordinance 5 dealing with the energy code. There's more discussion that needs to be conducted with some of the stakeholders on that. And so we're gonna embark on that discussion and see where that goes. Okay, consent agenda then, as it's been added to, are there any questions on items 1 through 4? Yes, Director Adcock.
Bruce, I've got some questions about item 3. I guess when I read this, I thought of the lady over on, wasn't it Denison Street, that we made her pull up her concrete because she was around houses. And this lot does have houses on a couple sides of it. So what special things are we going to do to make this fit into the community?
Miss, Mr. Honeywell to come forward. And remember, this was part of an agreement that we have with the church. They were to demolish some houses, and we were to build a parking lot. And this is also going to be utilized, obviously, by the patrons using the 12th Street station. So we've already agreed in writing to do this. But John, if you
It has been a very ugly parking lot with tall grass in it, with gravel here and there and yonder, and with cars not even parked in a straight line. So I just want to make sure that it's going to be something worth $180,000 that will be a plus to the neighborhood.
It is, and that was something very important that we talked about, that, and that's why we're moving forward with John.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, board members, Director Adcock, this parking lot was designed per the city's code, so it will have curb and gutter, it'll be paved asphalt. It's going to have landscaping around the entire perimeter, so you'll have that buffer between the adjacent. The only place we have houses adjacent to it are on the west side. The rest of it is, I believe, the church and then city-owned property, if I'm not mistaken. So we're doing it per the city code, unlike that parking lot that you referenced that was over by Central High.
How many entrances and exits is it going to
I
have?
believe it has 2.
Will it cause any lights to go into the homes?
No, it should not,
Okay.
because it's one of the drives is where the alley is that goes between homes, and the other one is facing due south, so it won't be pointed towards any of the homes.
Okay. And landscaping on all sides of it?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. And it's asphalt instead of concrete?
Yes, ma'am. The driveway aprons will be concrete, but the rest of the parking lot is asphalt.
Why?
That's how we design and build parking lots. The driveway apron where it meets the street is concrete, so it's congruent with the existing concrete curb and gutter.
And we'll have sidewalks?
Yes, ma'am. Brand new
how?
sidewalks will be built along the side of Pine Street, I believe it is.
Okay. I know out in Southwest, they had to fence the police parking lot because of safety reasons. Is this going to have any fencing around it?
The exterior, the part that faces the street is not going to be fenced. I cannot remember if there's a fence along the western side. Is there? Yeah, there is a privacy fence. I'm looking at Mr. Collins because he's the one that designed this parking lot. So, there will be it's a wood privacy fence that will be put along that western side that's adjacent to the residential homes. But the rest of it will be open without a fence.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, John.
Welcome.
Okay, if there are no other questions about the consent agenda, let's move on to the planning and development items, and let me ask you to look through items 6 through 11. Director Wright, you're recognized.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like a presentation on ordinance number 7, thank you.
Mr. Brzezinski. I'm still paying you.
We should ask for every presentation tonight.
Item 7.
Yes.
Director Wright, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. Item 7 is a request to revoke existing planned commercial development for the property that has frontage on West 40th and Colonel Glenn, also abuts Whitfield Street. This was approved back in 2004, and then it's had some revisions, but now what's before you is revocation of the planned development for that portion of the property.
Who is requesting this?
The property owner,
And do we know who that is? Is that the Islamic Center?
they do not own this part of the property. They own the property where the 5 houses are currently sitting.
So, but this would back up into the neighborhood, and I can tell you that the neighborhood does not want multifamily here. They have fought this forever. I've been out there since 1993, and they have always fought this. So, this is going to be contentious, Mr. Moore. And
Well, it
Go
was
ahead.
on the consent agenda at the planning commission. The neighborhood was, there wasn't anybody present.
they
There
may
was-
not have been present, but trust me, I've heard about it. And I'm wondering if they really knew about it, because there was something else that was coming up too about a church that I've been hearing a lot about that I gotta get with, well, not you, Jamie. But we'll just see if it goes through, it goes through. But I know they've never wanted multifamily here.
Well, that was the underlying zoning, so. if
I
this-
know, and that's why we worked to get it changed with the property owner. So I'm wondering what's prompting this, because it was changed to this PCD.
Last Thursday, the planning commission approved a conditional use permit for a church.
Okay,
on
that's-
a portion of this property, the northern part of it.
So this may be connected with that. That may have been why you didn't get, I think this may be connected with that church then. Because they were concerned about all the parking, but they liked the fact that it would be a church. But I'm concerned about this multifamily. But anyway, I'll find out what else can go there. I know that they were planning something very extensive, but it was going to be in phases and was going to take quite a few years to pan out.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Tony.
So, just, Tony, so the request is for both multifamily and C3, is that correct?
The-
And the PCD was for what purpose that never got built?
It was a part of the Islamic Center's overall plan. This portion, I think the southern part of the property had some retail, and then just kind of a community building and office. Let's see, proposed residential, single-family, and also some senior housing, a community center, a school, office, retail uses. So it was a true mixed-use project. And I forgot to point out that the revocation would bring back the underlying zoning, which is the MF12 multifamily
And
and
C3.
C3 general commercial.
Yeah. So I guess in the interim, the property was sold off to some other owner.
Mayor, I'm not sure if the Islamic Center ever really bought the property. Maybe they had an option on it.
Okay.
I'm not
I
sure.
I remember I was out there for the dedication of the homes, and the idea was to further establish the community there, so I was just curious. Okay, thank you very much. Director Adcock, do you have a question on this item?
Plan, I'd like to see where the apartments are going to sit and where the church is going to sit.
Director Adcock, there's no site plan at this point. Well, there was one for the church, but that was a conditional use permit that was approved by the Planning Commission, and they have final action on conditional use permits.
Okay, where on this property was the church going to sit?
Up at 40th, corner of 40th and Whitfield, West 40th.
Okay, up next to the neighborhood.
Yes.
Okay. And was that church parking lot going to be over to the left of where, by the homes?
No, the parking lot was to the west of the building, if I remember.
Okay. Over the next to the homes. The
Where
five
the
houses.
cursor is, in that general location.
Okay. And do you remember how much the property the church was going to take?
No, I don't.
Okay. Can you tell us who was notified on this? So the 5 homes would have to have been notified?
Well, the John Barrow Neighborhood Association was notified. On a revocation, I think it's just neighborhood associations in the area.
Okay. And any home within 200 feet?
No, not on a revocation.
So the homes have not been notified, just the association?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, very good. Are there any other questions on items?
Yes, one more. So, Tony, nobody notified the Islamic Center? They are an organized entity?
Again, if we have that neighborhood association list,
Okay.
and that's what we use,
Okay.
like every other department uses, that's the city's list.
I know Carolyn called me about this, and they were concerned about the magnitude of it, but it was in phases, and the initial one was the church and the parking lot, which they felt they could support, but then they didn't really want it to go back to multifamily, but it was all a part of the church. So this is kind of convoluted, Joan. It's not that simple, but I'm concerned that those houses right there don't know anything about this. Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there is nothing else on those items, we can turn to the separate items. And Tony, why don't you go ahead and give us a presentation on 14?
Mayor, Vice Mayor, board members, item 14 is property located at the corner of Woodrow and Lamar Street in the Capitol View Stiff Station neighborhood. Lamar is also on-ramp to Interstate 630, as you can see in the sketch before you. The request is to rezone 3 lots from R3 single family to planned commercial development for 2 uses, a restaurant and then an electric vehicle charging station. This was at the Planning Commission meeting on June 8th. You see the Planning Commission, and the vote was 10 ayes and 1 no. The Planning Commission did support this and recommended approval. And the Neighborhood Association is in support of it, Capitol View Stiff Station. There was no opposition there, except for staff's opposed to it. And we feel that Woodrow has been the line, as you can see in the graphic in front, or the map in front of you. The non-residential is east of Woodrow. The land use plan recognizes Woodrow as the line between non-residential and residential, and we're concerned about the encroachment of non-residential zoning into this neighborhood. And I know there's I-2 directly to the north, which is light industrial. We're not sure how that happened. At one time, the southernmost building was an auto-related use, but is no longer being used that way. It's been vacant for a number of years. And again, the neighborhood felt very passionate about this development. There was somebody, for the president from Capitol View Stiff Station, that spoke in support at the Planning Commission. The applicant has worked with the neighborhood on some issues, and he's developed a plan that they're very happy with. But you can see our concern about the possible continued encroachment into that area.
So there's adequate space for parking for a restaurant, and
Yes.
what's the square footage anticipated for the restaurant?
approximately 1,500 square feet.
All
So
right,
there
thank you.
might be a little short, but we feel that it's going to be adequate parking.
And there are big utility transmission lines to the south of this, right?
There's a utility substation directly to the south, and so I think that
Do you think that impacts the residential character of?
No, because, you know, a lot of years ago, I forget when it was, we had that request for a utility substation out in the extraterritorial area. And as part of the review, we went around and looked at similar substations. There's one close to where Vice Mayor Webb lives, that's right in the backyard of houses. And and there's other examples of that, and it doesn't seem to have an impact on residential.
Okay, thank you. Director Adcock, you're recognized, please.
I need item 12 of presentation.
Oh, we're not, I'm sorry, let me go ahead and call on Vice
Okay.
Mayor Webb, who wants to ask some questions about this,
Okay.
comments.
And just, I mean, Tony expressed the support from the neighborhood, and Danielle Ray, who is the president of the Neighborhood Association, will be here next Tuesday night to answer questions too. They're very enthusiastic about this project, like you said.
Okay, Director Adcock.
Item 12, Tony. Why are they changing this from the R2, and they're going to keep it single family, I understand, so what's the changes?
Director Adcock, what they're proposing, it is currently zoned R2, and last year, a preliminary plat was approved by the Planning Commission for 365 lots on the 120 acres. They're proposing now, at that time, it was lot 60 by 120. Their proposal now is to have a mixture of 50-foot lots and 60-foot lots. Because of the 50-foot lots, they're having to go through the plan development process. By adding the 50-foot lots, they're increasing the lot total to 400. Everything else stays the same, the street layout, the green space, which the green space is approximately 41 acres total. And this project will have a substantial investment in terms of infrastructure costs, the utilities, streets, drainage, and they'll do the necessary boundary street improvements to Man Road in phases, and it's a single-family development.
Will the entrances and exits all be on Man Road, or will it tie into some of the other streets?
No, the two exits or access points are on Man Road. There is a emergency exit or access on the south, but that's going to be gated, and again, it's only for emergency purposes only.
Is it going to be, the whole thing will be gated, or just the back of it?
Just that emergency access point.
You know what price range these houses are?
No, I don't. They will be 3-bedroom, 2-bath, and then to have 2-car garages.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And did you say 400 units?
With this proposal, Mayor, yes, a total of 400 lots.
Okay, thank you.
Who's the developer on this?
It's a LLC, Town Creek LLC.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes the items on our agenda with the issues we're going to be considering. Bruce, on the financial, you're prepared to go forward with that today?
We are.
All right.
We got Sarah Linehan, our finance director.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. I'm going to present the first quarter financial report today. So on the first slide, you'll see that through the first quarter of the year, we would expect to collect approximately 25% of our revenues. We were at 24.99%, which is just about 25% in comparison to 25.77% the same period a year ago. On the next slide, you'll see the dollars. We were 6,000 below 1/4 of the adopted budget, and about 1.5 million below the same period a year ago. Through the end of March, we had collected just over $48 million of our annual revenue against a budget of $48,006,721, and compared to $49,551,986 the same period a year ago. On the next slide, you'll see the breakdown. The revenues are, as I mentioned, about 6,000 below 1/4 of the adopted budget and 1.5 million below the same period a year ago. A large portion of that variance is in the property tax area. And if you'll recall, last year we talked about the fact that the excess collections had come in too late to be recorded in 2015 and were recorded as 2016 revenues. So we have that duplicate or that extra excess collections that we're comparing to the first quarter last year, and that accounts for 926,000 of that variance in the property tax category. Our property taxes are above budget through the first quarter because of the timing of the receipts. The first due date, comes before the first quarter. We usually collect about 40% in the first quarter and then about 60% in the last quarter of the year. I'm going to talk in detail about sales taxes in a moment. Our licenses and permits, we collect annually. They're due January 1st, so we collect virtually almost 100% of the business license portion of the license and permits. The remainder of that annual budget is tied to like building permits and things that happen more ratably through the year, and with the mixed drink revenue that happens more ratably through the year. Our intergovernmental revenues are received annually in July, so that will be a negative variance until that July timeframe. Our charges for services, the first $1.3 million in revenue each year from our parks and recreation activities are dedicated to the debt service on the Parks and Rec bonds. And so that money, those first revenues are recorded in a debt service fund as opposed to the general fund, and that's why those numbers are always below budget at the first part of the year due to the timing of that commitment. The same is true of our utility franchise fees. We have it's about $1.7 million in our first utility franchise fees that are dedicated to the 2002 junior lien bonds and the 2007 capital improvement bonds. And so those are recorded in a debt service fund as opposed to general fund revenues. The variance in investment income, where we have a very positive variance, you'll recall in December when I presented the annual financial report for December, I told you that we had a fair market value adjustment, a negative fair market value adjustment in December. That was reversed in January because, again, as I mentioned, we hold those investments to maturity. And so we reversed that at the first of the year, which is creating a temporary favorable variance that will get trued up when those maturities or when those investments mature. The miscellaneous income is slightly below budget at this point, and that's because included in our miscellaneous income this year, we have a receivable from the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau that will go toward the debt service on the note for the Cromwell building that we issued last year, and that we will bill them for that amount a month in advance of the timing of that note payment being due. And so we've got a negative variance right now because that money won't be received until it's needed about a month before that payment is due. On the next slide, you just see the comparison to the same period a year ago, and I've already gone into detail about the property tax revenue. I will tell you that in addition to the excess collections, which I've already said are about almost $1 million worth of that variance, our collections were a little bit slower in the first quarter, but the original charge, which gives us a good feeling on how the revenues are going to grow, was actually 4% above the same period or above last year. And after the March timeframe, but before the presentation of this report, we did have a large month of collections that made up for that negative in the first quarter, and we are now ahead of where we were last year. So there's no concern there. I think I've already explained these other variances. The fines and fees is just due to the first collections that we receive in January and February are usually associated with tickets that were issued in December. And so we accrue those revenues back to the previous year. This happens at the first of every year pretty much, and we expect that to be in line with budget by the end of the year. Now we'll go on to our sales tax collections. So beginning with the March 17 that you see there, that's receipts in March for January sales. And those were up 2.11%. And then the sales that we received in April, the revenues in April for February sales declined 5.69%. And then in May, when we received our March sales and use tax revenue, that was the first month that included Amazon's voluntary remittance of online sales tax revenue. And we were up 8.81% in May. Now, I will tell you, though, not 100% of that is due to the Amazon revenues. Part of that, I think, we really have no way to verify, but with the volatility we see, we're just not completely sure of the cutoff that happens at the state for each month's revenues. And we think some of that negative maybe in the previous month was being made up in this month. But not all of this was retail sales. And I also want to make sure that everybody understands that Amazon's voluntary collection only has to do with those sales that are Amazon products, not with their hosted third-party sales that they do. There is no tax collection on those third-party items that they distribute. So for the quarter, sales tax growth was up, or we were up 2.29%. Which is the city's portion of the county tax was up 0.98. The local piece, the Little Rock piece, was up 2.29, and the blended increase was 1.7%. Our adopted budget is 1.68%, so we are right in line with our adopted budget at this point. On the next slide, you just see the summary of all of that that I've just gone over. I will tell you that over the last 12 months, our growth has only been 0.35%. But again, we're hoping that we're going to start seeing a little bit more steady improvement, at least with one of the large online vendors. But of course, we still need action at the federal level on that legislation. On the next slide, you'll see the detail by month. So we've the second to the last column shows you in comparison to our budgeted growth, which again was 1.68%. So basically we were just about 0.5% over for the first month. We were down 7.26 in comparison to budget for the second month, up 7% for the third month. But in comparison to the same period a year ago, those are the numbers that I had just gone over, and we're up 1.7% in comparison to the same period a year ago, which is right in line with our budget. The next slide will go over our revenue from the new 1 cent tax that's been in effect now since 2012. So our revenues year to date, $11.9 million, just under $12 million. Of that, just under $7.5 million have gone towards operations that are filling our police and fire, code enforcement, parks maintenance that we just talked about, and zoo positions. Approximately $4.5 million of that have gone in toward capital project funding. Life to date, we have collected just over $250 million, of which $94 million has gone towards capital improvements and $156.8 million has gone towards the operating expenses. As I just mentioned, our tax revenues are up 2.29% for the local in comparison to the same period a year ago. So things are looking right on track at this point for the current year. On the next slide, we'll see our utility fees. Our electric franchise fees, we budgeted a 6.4% decrease from last year's actual, based on information we received from the utility, which would equate to about $12.7 million for the year. Usage in the first quarter declined 2.4%. Revenues declined 5.8%, so we are just slightly ahead of our adopted budget, even though we are below prior year. The next slide is our gas revenues. On the gas utility, you'll see, last year we were down 22% compared to the same period a year ago. The utility actually, information they provided to us told us to budget a 33% increase. We did temper that a little bit. We only budgeted a 25% increase. And this was due to adjustments in the base rate for all customers, so there was some logic behind that. They also anticipated a more normal weather pattern. We still have seen really relatively mild weather, both in the winter months and in the summer months. So we are a little bit behind. We're right now about 238,000 short of where we would expect to be for this time of year, with those first few months typically being colder. But we will see, as time will tell, it's a little too early to be too concerned. On the next slide, we have our expenditures. Through the first quarter, we had expended 24.13% of our annual budget. Again, 3 months of the year would be 25% of the annual budget, and that compares to 24.86%. So while our revenues were slightly below the same period last year, our expenditure percentage of budget is also slightly below the same period a year ago. On the next slide, you see the dollars. We had expended $46.5 million of our annual budget compared to $48 million. $48 million would be 25% of our annual budget, and compared to $47 million the same period a year ago. So we're about $500,000 below our expenditures the same period a year ago. And if we turn to the next slide, you'll see by department. We have an unfavorable variance in general administration. That is due to the timing of our debt service payments. We were $1,241,000 above our just 1 quarter of the year on debt service, just due to the timing of those note payments. Those will be exactly in line with our budget. And then favorable variances are offsetting that negative $1.2 million, and that's associated with the timing of our pension and our OPEB contributions that happen at the end of the year, and our vacation and sick benefits that are budgeted here that are also expended throughout the year. The slight negative variance in the Board of Directors, the Municipal League Breakfast, Host City Breakfast that we have in January, hits our Board of Directors budget, and that's just due a timing. That will be fine by the end of the year. Then as we go down the line, the traffic, every year, Traffic Court pays Pulaski County approximately $51,000 for a deputy public defender. And that occurs annually in January. That is part of their budget. That's just a timing issue. Information technology. You're used to seeing favorable variances in information technology, and what's going on here is they have a 3-year Microsoft Core CAL, and CAL, that stands for Client Access License renewal. And the board approved that contract. We entered into that contract, but it's a 3-year contract. So when they entered the purchase order, it encumbered funds for an entire 3-year period. So we've now gone in and split that out into 3 separate years so that the full encumbrance doesn't hit just 1 year, and that will take care of that negative variance. That adjustment didn't happen until June, so you may have to put up with seeing that for another month or so. Golf, the negative variance there is just due to the timing of the first tee contributions. Those are front-loaded at the beginning of the year, just for operating expense purposes. And then we've got favorable variances in fire and police, and the largest portion, over $1 million in each of those, is due to the timing of the dedicated pension contributions. They, with fire, those contributions are tied to the collection of the property tax revenue, and again, since we, so there's a favorable variance there associated with the timing of receipt of that dedicated levy. On the police side, Lofty actually bills us a certain rate of payroll each month that's tied to that, the payroll contributions, but our collection of the property tax levy, the dedicated city sales tax of $500,000, and the 10% fines and forfeitures that go to that police pension. We accumulate that revenue, compare it to what lot fee bills us, and at the end of the year, we make a lump sum contribution to pay down the unfunded liability with any excess dedicated collections. So again, that's what's generating the majority of that favorable variance. In addition, we do have some favorable fuel variances and repairs and maintenance variances that are going on just due to the timing of expenditures. On the next slide, we'll look at our vacant positions. The budget for vacancy savings is $7 million. And I know there's confusion sometimes about what vacancy savings really is. When we adopt our personnel budget, we budget for 100% of the authorized positions with their benefits at the current rates that people are in with whatever negotiated contract increases are coming across. We also budget to fill those vacant positions. This vacancy savings is an offset to that budget that equates to a personnel budget of about 95% of our total personnel cost. This is a way to account for the fact that you're going to have retirements, you're going to have turnover, it's going to take time to fill positions without individually identifying each individual position and saying, I'm going to hold that vacant for the entire year. And some of the positions that take a little longer to fill are obviously our police and fire, just because of the recruiting period and then the vetting period. And so that's why we budget that vacancy savings. This is not money stockpiled away that we get to spend on something else. This is an offset to the personnel budget. So we budget $7 million. Through the first quarter of the year, we had achieved $2.1 million of our vacancy savings budget. We did have 148 vacant positions in the general fund. 62 of those were police officers. And we have one higher level uniform position, a sergeant position that's vacant. We do have a recruit class. I think Chief told us that he started with 18 and he's going to graduate 18 shortly. So that's very positive that we've retained all of them this time. So we are working, and we do plan to have, I think, 2 additional classes this year. Our vacation and sick payout budget for the year is $1 million, and through the first quarter, we had expended $329,000 of that for retiring employees. We'll probably see a dent in that budget with Tony and Truman leaving us. So, our next slide shows the timing, or the positions, and you can see we've been kind of hovering at that 140 to 150 mark for the last year, and we are working to fill those vacant police positions. I know we've made a lot of headway in the code enforcement positions, and we're working also on the 911 positions, and we've made some headway there too. So anyway, we hope to see that number decline. That concludes your first quarter report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to entertain them.
Thank you, Sarah. Questions by board members? Sarah, on the, I guess, at least temporarily encouraging news about the increase in the sales tax, I want everybody to understand that Congress is still not dealing with that issue. There has not been any movement by our congressional delegation in support of that any further than what we already know, which is Senator Bozeman and Congressman Womack and Congressman Crawford. The other 3 have not taken have either indicated they're not in favor of it, or they've not taken a position to support it to try and move it through, which is very, very frustrating. I will tell you, it's still a national issue with all of the major organizations between the National League of Cities, the U.S. Conference of Mayors, NACO, the ICMA, the International City Managers Association, the big 7 there is that is trying to push Congress to take an action on this. On the state front, as you know, it fell about 3 votes short of a methodology to try and capture a lot of the internet sales by virtue of requiring that these sellers notify the state of every person who has purchased items over the internet. That almost got through, did not, and basically the argument is about what the state's going to do with the savings, the money that they would receive from their 6.5% that would be collected if they were to go forward with it. On the Republican side of the House, they've got several ideas on what to do in terms of tax reduction. On the Democratic side of the House, there was a desire to see some pre-K funding being allocated out of some of that money, and it has created a stalemate that prevented it from getting passed. I will tell you that at the recent Arkansas Municipal League meeting, very strongly, the dialogue was quite strong to bring this issue back forward in a special session. The request was made of each city and town to be able to write letters to to the governor and to the respective legislators to try and get a special session on this to try and hammer this out. It's not a panacea. It won't cover everything. As Sarah said, Amazon's only voluntarily doing it on those things that they directly sell. I'm a little bit surprised that it might indicate that it's more than I would have expected it to be, but we'll just have to wait and see where that goes. But in any event, that's the status of what's going on with that internet sales tax. I want to thank Director Adcock for being there on Thursday morning, along with yours truly, to greet everyone. I wish we had had more people there. We do host the breakfast, and we've been doing that now for about 5 different meetings in a row. And it's a substantial amount of money. A lot of people attend. They're excited to be in the host city, and certainly they are spending their per diem in our host city, which we appreciate. I will let you know that the next one's going to be in Fort Smith. So we will not be hosting the breakfast. Fort Smith will be hosting the breakfast. So I hope we can have a delegation there. I think it's very good to dialogue with our colleagues, and certainly there's a tremendous amount of substance that is imparted in a variety of the sessions as well. So I just wanted to give you that heads up and to give a shout out to Director Adcock for helping. Yes, Director Adcock.
I would like to request that you send a letter to the AMP Commission and tell them that we ran out of pens and that they was very stingy with them this year, and that we would appreciate in the future if we ask for pens for 1,800 people that we get more than 200.
Well, you're looking at 3 of us, so we'll make sure that we pass that
That's
word
why
on.
I'm looking down there. I would think that you 3 would have a little more pull than 200 pens.
We were surprised, yes.
Also, I would like to thank Cheryl for showing up and helping us.
That's right. Cheryl did come, and she helped us out. Thank you very much, Cheryl.
Thank you.
It was great to have a citizen, a Little Rock citizen, help us. Very nice. Okay, Vice Mayor Webb.
Thank you. Sarah, thank you for that really helpful presentation. And I'm glad we're going to have 18 out of 18. How are we doing on 911 operators? And that may be Bruce.
Yeah, that continues to be somewhat of a challenge. After we announced the new step and grade, we have had an increase in the application pool. So I see that as a positive. We did just get some out of training to get onto the floor, but we're continuing to recruit heavily in that area also.
Thank you.
Director Wright?
Yes, Mayor. I see some of your tweets that are coming from your department. I'm sure you're not doing all this tweeting.
Oh, you'd be surprised.
All right now, but some of these events that I'm seeing tweeted out, I've never heard of. Like you were at something to prevent gang violence or something. I don't recall knowing anything about an event. I might have wanted to come. And when
Well, we didn't organize it.
yeah, well, you tweeted about it, so I thought maybe that
Oh, I
would be
did.
something the board
I found
could-
out about it. You know, I found out about it. You bet. Yeah, I found out about it, but that was not necessarily organized by the city.
Okay, so that's why we didn't get an invitation or know anything about it. Okay.
That's correct. That was done through the community and through some people who are helping with the issues of violence, and they put out the word. I think there's another group doing one on July 6th, so I can certainly pass the word to everybody, but that's also not being done as a city event.
Well, we did ours on June 9th, 10th, and 11th. Am I my brother's keeper? So,
So
I
you
think-
might want to put that out too, so we know about
well,
it.
we've already had it, and we
Oh,
did
you
a
mean on June?
proclamation.
I'm sorry, I thought you said July.
Yeah,
Sorry.
we did a proclamation and everything
Yeah.
here. So anyway, it went well. Thank you.
Director Hines.
Bruce, could you ask staff, and I don't know which staff member, I've got a call from a developer out in West Little Rock that's got a new neighborhood that he is saying that the U.S. Postal Service is not going to provide door-to-door service and that he's going to be forced to install a kiosk to do kiosk delivery in a neighborhood, like you would do in an apartment complex. And this is news to me, and I don't think it's anything planning staff's aware of, and I'm kind of curious as to how that's coming about. It seems to me that our post office ought to be providing more service instead of less and cutting some of the fat in other places, so. Thanks.
Bruce, go ahead.
Mayor, members of the board, Scott, if we can go to that form. We're a few years out, and Director Wright, but we want to start taking requests for the third funding cycle, which will be, the years will be 2019, 2020, and 21. But as the board knows, a lot of this, once the projects are selected, it takes almost a year to design them if we're doing a lot of infrastructure or the street projects. So what we'd like to do now, again, we've been taking these throughout, but I need a sort of a cutoff date. So we're going to have this on our website tomorrow, and then we'll do a press release but we'd like to get these in by August the 31st of 2017. Then we'll go through, the staff will go through as we've done and do an estimate on each project. And remember, this third round is going to be sales tax and bond. We have about $45 million in the second series. So after we take out the 10% for citywide on both in both pools, we'll have about $6 million close to per ward. So then I'll sit down with you all and go over the project list, and then we'll go out to the community and say, okay, here's the $6 million pool, here's the list of projects that we received, here's our recommendation. And then if we can I want to spend the balance of this year getting that done, and then during the first quarter, January, February, have the ward meetings, get the projects adopted by hopefully the second quarter of 2018, and that'll give us a good head start on the third round.
Bruce, I know it's important to try and get these in, but with summertime and everything, just 8 weeks to try and get these all in, get it out and get it communicated and get it back in, that sounds a little short to me. I don't know about anybody else, but I would ask you to kind of think about whether that's going to be an absolute cutoff, because, we get a lot of calls from people who say, well, I didn't know about it and it didn't get on the list for the first round or the second round. And I know there needs to be some sort of a cutoff, but that's right during the summertime with everybody on vacation.
I'll go another month, Mayor. I mean, we got to have a cutoff. I mean, and so, and it pushes us even further. So, but I'll change the form to make it to September 31st.
Director Hancock?
Mr. Moore, would you please send this to us by email so that we can copy it to the associations
Sure, I'll get it revised and send it out.
tomorrow?
Sure.
Thank you.
That's all I had.
Okay. Does anybody else have anything? Director Wright, if I hear of any of these things, I'll be happy to pass these things on. I found out about it very late, so I didn't even really get a chance to barely do it myself.
Mayor, for the benefit of the board, just before you leave, several years ago, and Director Wright's very familiar with this, a man named Michael Wright helped work with the Optimist Club of Little Rock to get land donated that is now the West Central Community Center. Mr. Wright was a very big optimist. He was also quite active in the Boy Scouts and had been a member of the scouting program for 60 years. He passed away this Sunday, and the funeral will be this week. But we've got a new community center largely because of his efforts.
Very well, thank you. Okay, if there's nothing else, we stand finished. Thank you.